Okay, John, here's the $64 question. You gonna run for another term?
Democratic Visions is handmade by volunteers for the entire metro region through DFL Senate District 48. Now here's host Tim O'Brien.
Representative John Benson has been very ably representing parts of Plymouth and Minnetonka. John is in the middle of his third term. John, welcome back to Democratic Visions.
Thank you.
During the campaign season, John cuts a very dashing figure on an electric scooter. He's always in touch with the people he represents, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, through regular town meetings and at the Capitol. John, you took the pulse of your constituents at Senate District 43 precinct caucuses. What is the pulse, up or down?
Well, I think it's up as far as the Democrats. You know, it turned out I didn't show up at the Republican caucuses, but
well, you probably that would have been a crime if I if I understand the law correctly.
Well, it will be if one of these amendments goes through this fall. I don't know how many there are, but that one might be included.
John, I know that you've been involved in a lot of important legislation, and let's talk about the Homestead Credit Restoration Bill. Right. Can you give us just a little bit of background about what happened? Why do we need a restoration? And what you hope to accomplish with this legislation?
Well, I'm on the local property tax division, and so it came through my committee. And the reason it was eliminated were a couple of reasons, but the most important one had to do with the fact the majority, in this case the Republicans, needed money to try to balance the budget without raising the taxes on their friends. And so one way to find $500 million
$500 million
was to change the homestead credit, which, by the way, had been going to 95% of homeowners. And for most Minnesotans who own homes, it's really the only tax break of any kind they get. I voted against it, of course. We were in the minority. We lost that vote. In committee 2 weeks ago, we introduced it again, and the Republican majority unanimously twice voted it down again. But I am a co-author of the restoration bill.
So does that indicate that we're going to have to get the Democrats back in the majority for that bill to pass?
Well, if people want their homestead credit, yes, they're going to have to. You know, it also affected small businesses. They got hit real hard with this too. It's also farm property as well. Some communities were in favor of getting rid of it simply because the state had been shifting its responsibility to pay the homestead credit onto the local governments. And so that was a little hidden shift again. You hear about shifts going on. That's one most people don't know about. So cities had to make up the difference.
I think I read someplace, John, that there's been a $3.5 billion increase in real estate property taxes over the last decade. Does that number resonate with you?
It's been huge. It's been very fast growing. Minnesota, you know, had always prided itself on having a more progressive tax system. And by increasing property taxes so dramatically, as much as 75% since 2000, we are losing that advantage that we'd had before. At least I see it as advantage. You know, I've always assumed that people should pay based on their ability to pay. But if you're getting taxed more and more on your home, it has nothing to do with what your income is. So for people on fixed incomes,
disabled, senior citizens,
people, and Republicans also dramatically reduced renters credit. A lot of people who live in apartments in my House district, as there are throughout the state of Minnesota, and particularly the metropolitan area, and there's a proposal to cut that back further, which means for an average...
Not to restore it, but to cut it back further?
Cut it back more, in order to come up with a part funding for an $800 million proposal, which is on the table now, to reduce corporate taxes by $800 million. The trouble is, they only have money to pay for the first year of this 12-year phase-in, or phase-out, I guess we'd say, and all of it's coming from renters' credit.
Unbelievable. So, so if I have this right, we're going to reduce the taxes on this corporation or that corporation by, in effect, making people who rent apartments bear the brunt of that transfer.
So an elderly person living in a one-room apartment, for example, he or she would lose something over $300 a year. which maybe doesn't sound a lot to a person who makes $200,000-300,000. But for someone who is living on $20,000 or less, that means groceries for 2 or 3 weeks or a month, or you know, their pharmaceuticals that they need to have.
Flat out economic injustice.
Yeah, it is. It's really an outrage, and no explanation of where the other $600 million is coming from. I suspect it's going to come from the safety net, which is already pretty tattered in the state.
What is the present projection? I think back in December they were projecting just under $800 million surplus. Is that correct?
Well, it's called a surplus, but you have to remember we borrowed. I didn't. I voted against it. But
I like these votes you're taking against the Republicans.
I know. You know, I didn't want to be just someone who says no, no, no. But I was casting a lot of red votes. I'm sorry, because we borrowed $3,383 from every single boy and child in the state of Minnesota who goes through K-12 education. It was called the education shift. That's 40% of the budget. And
every child,
$3,383.
Boy,
and they
girl.
are claiming that they raised funding for public schools. Yes, they did on the books. They just simply didn't give them the money.
Are the schools ever going to get that money?
Well, the last time we had a shift of this magnitude, in fact, we've never had a 40% shift. The most, I think, is 20 or so. It took 15 years to pay it back.
Unbelievable.
So I don't see where this money is coming from. We haven't even talked about the tobacco fund bonds. We're spending all that $700 million to fill the budget, and it will all be gone at the end of this year. And we will be paying $1.2 billion in principal interest over the next 25 years to pay it back.
More importantly than that, doesn't that eliminate the ability to use the monies that the tobacco companies are paying to the state of Minnesota to educate people on the dangers of smoking?
Forget that. That's gone.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about the proposed constitutional amendment dealing with civil unions.
I'm suggesting people vote against all these amendments, regardless of whether they might be inclined to one or another, simply because it's bad public policy. The problem with that amendment or any of these is that we're asking the public to vote on somebody else's rights. And we used to call that popular sovereignty. You know, that's what Lincoln and Douglas were fighting about on the spread of slavery. And you think about it, would it have been right to have the white population of America in 1858 voting on whether or not black people should be slaves?
Mm-hmm.
And so this issue of marriage equality, I've moved on that. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution is pretty clear. It simply says that the Congress nor the states can discriminate against anybody. We've never put anything in the Constitution that restricts people's rights. We've only put things in the Constitution that expand rights. I'm not going to participate in doing that.
John, I've run through some bills that you've introduced into the 2012 session, and I want to go through a few of these.
Okay.
One has to do with implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act, the President Obama 2010 led legislation.
Called the Health Exchange.
What are you doing, or what does your bill purport to do in that regard?
Basically, all it does is put everything on a very accessible website so that anybody who is looking for health insurance can go on this website and find out what's being offered by all the various insurance companies. It's a private health insurance exchange. This is going forward. Governor Dayton has the task force. It has business people, consumers, union people, doctors. It has insurance companies, all represented, and they're working together to come up with this program. And the Republicans in the House are fighting it. Why? I don't understand.
Well, can I just interrupt? If Minnesota doesn't adopt it, isn't the federal government going to impose a plan on us?
Why would we want the federal government to doing this when we can devise our own plan that works for our own state? That's obviously the better way to go.
I got another hot button issue for you. I know that you're co-authoring a bill to permit Racino, which slot machines at Canterbury Racetrack. Yes. Why is that a good idea for the state of Minnesota?
Well, I don't know how good gambling is, but...
well, why are you sponsoring it then?
Representative Garofalo, the Republican chair of the Education Committee, is the chief author. I signed on because all the money that would be raised would go to the schools. I already told you that we have borrowed almost $3 billion from the schools, over $3 billion. This was a way to start paying it back.
But what assurance do we have the money would go to schools?
Well, that's what the bill is. That's
Yes.
what I signed on.
Yes.
Now, who knows, you know, if they're going to skim the money to build a Viking stadium or something like that, we don't know.
Okay. What do you think the prospects of that are? Hard to say?
Well, now that Senator Senjum has become the majority in
Right.
the Senate, majority leader, he's in favor of it. The Senate was really the roadblock. You know, should we be coming up with other ways of
Yeah, we should raise taxes on the wealthy, obviously.
Yes. Well, I think they should pay the same percentage as you and I,
Yeah,
whether
I
they
agree
should
with
pay
that.
more. I would say, though, that a third of the state budget, you know, never gets into the coffers. It all goes into various tax breaks and subsidies and things like that. As you know, reapportionment every 10 years comes up.
And this is a reform package that you're presently aligned with, as I
Yep.
understand it.
And so I'm proposing that we have a nonpartisan reapportionment commission made up of retired judges and others who are highly respected by both sides. They do it in California, they do it in Iowa, it's moving to other states. Florida probably will be the next state. Because the founding fathers thought of almost everything, but one they didn't realize is how clever politicians can be in picking their own district lines so they can ensure themselves re-election. The second one, I want a commission to set salary and benefits for legislatures. I don't think senators, Democrats, or Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate should be picking their own, setting their own salary and their own benefit package. That should be done by a nonpartisan group.
Do you think that the very low salary of legislators has an impact on those who can't run because they simply
sure.
cannot afford it?
Young people who have families, they can't live on $30,000 a year. So it goes to people who are comfortably well off, or they're retired, like me, or somebody. You know, I didn't get in.
Or they can get a gig from the Republican Party and manage to live in that fashion.
Well, that's another one of my reforms, which is that anybody who holds office in either the political party or any political party cannot then serve in the House or the Senate staffs as a paid staff member. And we've had that, this incident that took place, I'll say that, in the Senate, which the majority leader had to give up her position. I just do not think that if you are an operative, paid operative in one of the two political parties, then you should be able to get a job to work for the House or Senate, because you're bringing your politics into it.
Well,
Staff people are not supposed to be partisan.
If you have someone that's an operative in either party that's in that position, the likelihood of them espousing positions that would lead to compromise are slim and none.
None, right. Absolutely. Another one is the legislature may not continue in session after midnight.
Now,
we've been going to 2, 3, 4 in the morning, passing bills when nobody in the public even see what's going on.
Isn't that time in memoriam?
Yes, and I want it stopped.
Okay.
We shouldn't have that anymore. Can I give you another one?
Yeah.
Another one is people who are serving in office should identify their sources of income. Not only themselves, but their spouses. I want to know where they're getting their money, because many work outside the legislature. I do not want them secretly advocating or having an opportunity to advocate for bills or legislation which may be beneficial to a company or a corporation or a union that they might be working for.
Well, put some clothes on that. What does that mean? Is that...
Well, we have to disclose every dime we get in our campaign funds.
I'm aware of that. Isn't there like a group of Democratic legislators that have sort of proposed these reforms as a package, and you're a part of that?
Ryan Winkler from Golden Valley is the chief author, and I've signed on to those bills. The two I'm most interested in are the Reapportionment Commission and the Commission to set salaries and benefits. I just don't think politicians should be able to pick where they run for office and the boundaries so they can gerrymander themselves into a lifetime job. And by the way, this job should not be lifetime. This is a citizen legislature. You serve a time and then move on.
Right.
So, and you should not be able to set your own salary. I'm sorry, because those are taxpayers' money.
Okay, John, here's the
Yep.
$64 question. You going to run for another term?
Yes, sir, I am.
John, that's great. John, you're a tremendous asset for the state. Viewers, we'll see you next time on Democratic Visions.
Democratic Visions is handmade by volunteers for the entire metro region through DFL Senate District 48, Lori Pryor, Chair.